very lively race yesterday that ultimately ended with a red flag, and it gave the win, admittedly on the countback, to Phil Jenkins, and he will start today's race with the reversal of the top 10 from the 5th row. It means that the man on pole position is Tom Joyce-Hayman, 10th yesterday, and he lines up alongside Mark Stansfield. Russ Ollivant is on the 2nd row of the grid with Andy Perry alongside, and then Jose João Magalhães and Danny Killeen are on the 3rd row. Row 4 is Paul Thacker with Jason McCormick for company. He's out again because he was racing about 45 minutes ago in the 1600 division, ahead of Anthony Barnes and Phil Jenkins, the two to watch on row 5. Row 6, Lewis Tootle and Steve Collins, ahead of Stuart Calder and Mark Drain, with row 8 being Carl Nairn and Paul Begley. The next row of the grid is where you find Stephen Riley and Ian Cowley. Peter Reimer is on row 10 with Paul O'Reilly for company, and then Richard Borton lines up alongside, hopefully, Matt Welch, but I think that car was missing from the grid as the cars set off just a few moments ago. Ian's Noble and Dybel are on row 12, ahead of Tim Burton and Adam White. Matthew Reeve on row 14 with Philip Nagel for company. The 15th row, Duncan Greenaway and Adrian Fernandes alongside, ahead of Julian Carey and Billy Nairn. Then there's Rob Watts with Mark Bennett alongside him. There's Justin Armstrong, who was in the gravel early in yesterday's race. Next up, Neil Fraser is alongside him, and hopefully Matt Drew is going to complete the grid, but some of those at the back were the ones that were in strife yesterday, and partly, of course, with the cause of the red flag. Now, it was beautiful and sunny earlier, as it was yesterday, and that's what they raced in and what they qualified in. So now we have, thanks to a bit of rain that's fallen in the last half an hour, a slightly greasy surface, and because they haven't driven on a greasy, wet surface as yet, they've been given a second warming up lap, and it's still going to be a 25-minute race. This doesn't eat into the time, so the cars have been brought to the grid a little bit earlier so that we can keep the timetable on track with this second formation lap. So the cars now make their way around Druids. Now, something else to factor into all of this, Brands Hatch resurfaced in certain places over the winter months, and this is the first time that it will have been used on a wet day. So all the previous events have been dry, and now we'll start to see what comes out of that surface and whether it's going to be slippy, more slippery for the drivers, more of a challenge. Caterham racing is always good at the best of times, but on a greasy road, this could be very lively indeed. So the clerk of the course giving them this second formation lap, and at the end of it, they will get themselves in the side-by-side order, ready for the rolling start, and then the cars will be released into battle. Jason McCormick there in number 125 goes through, starting 8th, the two to watch behind him, number 4 of Anthony Barnes, who led when the red flag came out, but on the countback lost the win to Phil Jenkins in number 88. They spent most of the race side by side yesterday. Today they've got to battle their way up from that 5th row of the grid. So there you can see the, as it is at the moment, pace car leading them round. Tom Joyce-Hayman on pole position for the Macmillan Motorsport squad. This championship's already been to Donington, where the race wins went the way of Phil Jenkins and Paul Thacker. So Phil Jenkins then with now 2 wins to his credit. In number 88, he's the 2020 champion, Anthony Barnes, last year's champion. So the 2 champs together on the grid. They were together in the race yesterday. Tom Hayman Joyce, the estate agent, lining up on pole position, come from the Academy Series, and moved his way through many of the Caterham championships. Tom Hayman Joyce with Mark Stansfield alongside him. So, into position they get. You can tell which Anthony Barnes' car is, with his name writ large on the back of it. Everybody showing their allegiance, as the regulations dictate, to Toyo tyres, on whose rubber they run. And so 25 minutes, race 2 for the 420Rs in this Toyo Tyres 7-race series, about to get underway. All of these cars with 2-litre Ford Duratec engines. They're on Toyo tyres, of course, and on a slippery track. We are about to go racing as they make their way then up towards the timing line. That green car on pole position of Tom Hayman Joyce. It is Mark Stansfield in the sort of maroon colours alongside him. The race to get underway any second then. Lights change, we go racing. And the cavalry charge up towards Paddock Hill Bend. And now they are about to discover just how slippery it is. The sensible ones will be a bit cautious maybe for the first couple of laps, but actually so far so good. They tiptoe their way around Paddock. It looks very greasy, doesn't it? As to the outside line goes Jason McCormick. Into the lead dives number 55, which is Russ Ollivant, but he goes a little bit wide and loses the lead, loses second. Big slide coming out of Mark Stansfield car, but back on the inside, 3 wide and back into the lead. Russ Oliver, that was a really brave move on the inside at Graham Hill Bend. And not only that, to get the lead, but he also slowed the car down, tiptoes his way out of the corner, and up alongside him comes Mark Stansfield on the outside line to make his move for leadership as they dive now into Surtees. Still side by side, Stansfield gets run out wide and doesn't come back into shot. Yes, he does, but when he does, he was sideways. So Mark Stansfield, I fear, may well be ensnared in the gravel out of all of that as Russ Oliver leads the way. Tom Hayman-Joyce in second then as they drop down now towards the right-hander of Hawthorns, and Mark Stansfield has got himself out of the gravel, but a long way back as the leaders then turn their way through Hawthorn, and Phil Jenkins, to the eye, is already up into second place, so doing a remarkable job on the first couple of corners. There he is in second place from 10th on the grid. 125, Jason McCormack, another experienced and successful Caterham racer, right on the back there of Stephen Collins as they come up towards Sheen Curve for the first time. Number 4 of Anthony Barnes, another one looking to make progress. But they're real pioneers on this first racing lap, discovering where the grip levels may or may not be into Stirlings. Through that left-hander, slightly banked, back onto the power, down towards Clearways. And you can see what effect the conditions are having because the top 2 have broken away already. Russ Ollivant in the blue and green colours leading the double winner out of the 3 races we've had so far, Phil Jenkins. And those 2 have cleared off already into the distance. So partly it's the track conditions, others perhaps just being overly cautious in all of this, as now they make that run along the pit straight, up now towards Paddock Hill Bend. Good battle is on lower down the order there as Tom Hayman-Joyce battles with Stephen Collins, and Collins goes through on the inside. For the race lead, they go to Druids, and a big wobble there under braking from Russ Ollivant, who pushes out wide, scrabbles his way through the corner, and just about gets away with it, but Jenkins finds the grip on the outside line and goes through. We've got a couple of them in the pits as well at the end of the opening lap. One was Ian Dybel, and another, I think, was Matt Drew, who has now come to the pits as well. And that off the road, pretty seriously, I'm afraid to say, is Peter Reimer. That's coming out of Druids. Now, Pete Reimer is a very experienced Caterham racer. He's had good success over the years in these cars, so if he's being caught out by the conditions, it's clearly treacherous out there. So as the race leaders battle on, let's see what Pete Reimer did. He puts his foot on the gas and around goes the back. It just breaks away and onto friction-free grass. He slides off the road and bang, takes one of the markers with him, which then gets stuck under the car. So no real damage done, but he's off the racetrack, or was off the racetrack, and he's trying to get himself back onto terra firma. So the leaders then up through Sheen Curve. Pete Reimer back into the race, but with a lot of work to do to play catch-up now. But you can see the pace of the race much reduced. Yesterday, the fastest lap was a 1:36.8. Well, this is the first proper flying lap. And the leader is Phil Jenkins. Totally different race from yesterday, where he was trailing the lead almost corner by corner. And at the moment, he's out on his own because having cleared Russ Ollivant, he's just driving off into the distance. Anthony Barnes, then, his nearest pursuer of yesterday, up into third now at the expense of the silver car of Stephen Collins. He gets the inside line coming past the pits, although Collins keeps his foot to the boards on the outside line. The road will come to Barnes. On the inside, Anthony Barnes goes through and takes now third place. The computer programmer, the reigning champion, goes through, picks up the spot, and the race leader, with 5 minutes almost elapsed, goes now up through Druids with the rain still a-falling and the road therefore treacherous. 1:54 the first flying lap as against a 1:36 of yesterday, so 18 seconds or so off a dry weather pace. Russ Ollivant there second, goes wide coming out of the left-hander of Graham Hill Bend. That means the road opens up for Anthony Barnes, who just easily motors past him. And having cleared the traffic, the next target for him is going to be the race leader. So downhill goes 1:25. That's Jason McCormack, currently fifth. Jason spending his time this weekend between B's more powerful 420Rs and the 1600s as well, so having to adapt from car to car and the speed as well. And it's working for him, come what may, because he's up into fourth place, goes through on the inside, bounces over the Westfield curbs. And the next target for him is going to be Russ Ollivant. Now, the lead gap was 1.4 seconds last time. Anthony Barnes, in fact, was only fourth when they crossed the line, but now he's up into that second spot and very definitely hunting down the race leader. Number 47 you can see there, which is the man that started on pole position for Macmillan Motorsport, Tom Hayman-Joyce, and he in turn is falling down the order into 7th place now. Behind him there's a bit of a gap admittedly, but then you've got the likes of Justin Armstrong coming up from the 18th row of the grid. Now Justin, who's quick in Caterham, is very quick in years past in Porsches in Carrera Cup GB, was in the gravel early yesterday. McCormack goes now for 3rd place on the inside line and will go through, but very definitely Justin Armstrong is becoming the star of the race now, number 23, so 10th across the line. He was a lap ago, 8th he has just gone through, and he started on the 18th row of the grid, so he can make further progress from there, I would have thought. Wait for the car to come into shot. It is the largely yellow and blue car, blue bodywork, yellow cage, and it's probably about the next one to drop into the shot coming into Graham Hill Bend there on the tail of Tom Hayman-Joyce. So there is Armstrong, goes through, and you can see now that he's caught pretty much that leading line, so he can make more progress from here on in. Accelerates through Surtees, and again difference of line being employed, everybody tiptoeing their way around, looking for the grip and being ever so patient with the throttle. Except for here on the pit straight, that's number 54, Billy Nairn, former powerboat racer, who's headbutted the wall. And let's see whether or not he's going to be able to get himself out of harm's way. He's reversed onto the circuit now as he tries to get going again, and should be all right to move, I think. But the car suffered a bit of damage at the front potentially in that incident. So Billy Nairn is moving, the pit straight should be clear, there he is. So with that car pretty much out of harm's way, leaders won't be affected by it as they come up towards Stirling's. But what is happening for this lead situation now is that you've got Barnes being caught by McCormack. Russ Oliver there in the green and blue colours down to 4th, falling away just a little bit. The other one to watch there, the black-backed car, Danny Killeen, quick in the start of yesterday's race, and he faded a bit, and McCormack locks up as he comes into Graham Hill Bend. Now, lap after lap, lap times are still improving as tyres get a little bit warmer, and it's the more confident drivers, the braver drivers here, that are pushing on. Over the timing line they turn, and Jenkins to Barnes, 2.6 seconds, which is a huge gap in Caterham terms. There through on the inside, Lewis Tootle goes ahead of Tom Hayman-Joyce, but then goes wide, and so THJ makes his move back on the inside line, heading up the hill. Is he going to be able to do so as he brakes late? There goes Justin Armstrong as well, inching his way further forward onto the back of that little battle pack up the road ahead. So the race leaders are on lap number 5, and Phil Jenkins right now looking as though he's got this under control, you've got to say. Justin Armstrong presses on. He may have a transponder glitch because he's not reflecting sector times here, but you can see that he is closing on the traffic ahead of him. The next battle for him will be the Stephen Collins, Danny Killeen fight. There it is. Stephen Collins with the yellow cage, Danny Killeen right behind him, and as those two squabble, this brings the Team Parker racing car into the equation. 7th he is. Ignore the graphic for the moment because with his transponder not working, so that's rather playing with the order, but he's most definitely in the race. And look at this, he's right on the tail of Stephen Collins, who's lost out to Danny Killeen, and he's about to lose out to Justin Armstrong as well, who lines him up for a move on the inside at Westfield, and through he goes. So Justin Armstrong goes through on the inside using his Caterham experience, his Porsche experience to good effect. Very different sort of race cars, but the race craft that he learnt standing him in good stead. Into Stirling's he comes then now with the first 10 minutes just about done. Fastest lap to Phil Jenkins, but now Anthony Barnes takes half a second out of him in the first sector alone. And with 2.6 seconds to make up, that's significant. We've lost Jason McCormack at Clark Curve. In the background, look behind the timing tower, there's a blue car in the gravel, there it is. And that was Jason McCormack. You could hear the gravel rattling in the background as he ran out of road. So Jason McCormack falls off the circuit, gets himself back on, but he will fall now to where as he comes across the line. He's going to be behind Collins, so that's going to be 6th as he comes through. Anthony Barnes, 2.5 seconds was the gap. Now it's 1.6 between him and Phil Jenkins for the race lead. And the track conditions continue to catch out even the best. Pete Reimer we'd seen off the road, well, he's 33rd, trying to force his way back into contention as best he can as a sideways Jenkins comes towards us here. 2nd place behind him is Anthony Barnes, who's got the fastest lap of the race now as he hustles along. They make their way onto the run towards Hawthorns, and not quite getting the toe yet is Anthony Barnes, but a little bit nearer to get, and then some of the work can be done for him because he'll be dragged along by the aero created by the car ahead of him. So down they come into Hawthorns. It remains Jenkins ahead of Barnes, and yesterday's race was trading the lead corner by corner, lap after lap. Today, it's a real cat and mouse battle in as much as Barnes is trying to catch up again. Now, this is the third. It is Russ Ollivant ahead of Danny Killeen, ahead of Justin Armstrong. Together they run into the right-hander now of Westfield. Danny Killeen, more experienced in Caterham terms perhaps than Justin Armstrong is, but Justin is right there behind him as they go now up towards Sheen Curve. Russ Ollivant doing a good job of repelling the challenge as well. Number 55, the man from Rickmansworth, keeps Danny Killeen at bay. Danny, like many, worked his way from Caterham's academy for the racing rookies all the way up to these 420Rs. And like many people, once you're hooked into Caterham racing, you don't want to go anywhere else because you get lots of track time and lots of good, fierce racing as well. The race leaders just go across the line, and Phil Jenkins to Anthony Barnes is now 1 second. So another big chunk of time, like over half a second, pulled back by Barnes on that lap, and he's not done yet. So he's still looking good for a win here, as there Armstrong goes deep into Paddock Hill Bend, slides his way to the corner, gets some traction, and grabs the adhesion coming out of the corner as the leaders then turn their way into Druids again. So Ollivant remaining in that third spot, fourth Killeen, fifth is Armstrong, and here the race leaders together pretty much as they come now up towards Surtees. It remains Jenkins ahead of Barnes. The gap was 1 second at the start of this lap, and you can see over those last 3 laps how much quicker Barnes has been and how that gap has come down and down and down. The closer he gets, the more he'll benefit from the toe. And not only is he closing, but they are certainly well clear now of that fight for third place. So they don't need to worry about what's going on behind. As far as Anthony Barnes is concerned, this is absolutely perfect. He's focused on that one car ahead. He can also see from the behaviour of the car ahead where the grip might be, whether it's improving, whether it's worsening. Gauge himself against that. And Phil Jenkins is the constant pioneer. He's the first man on every lap to find the grip levels. And there's mayhem at Graham Hill Bend as cars go a scattering left and right. Mainly left, but as they come out of the corner, all over the grass, everybody recovers, everybody gets going again. So 4, I think we'd lost in that drama, but they've all got themselves back onto the circuit, the last of which was their number 53, Matt Welch, who did join in, but a little bit late on parade. So as the cars now come down through the right-hander of Clark Curve once more, Russ Ollivant keeping Justin Armstrong behind him. And now the cars once more surge over the timing line with the gap between the leaders down again to 0.7 of a second. A new fastest lap done that time around by Anthony Barnes. Out of paddock, up towards Druids they go. And these are the race leaders. And what was a mighty margin for Phil Jenkins 4 or 5 laps back is next to nothing at all now, is it? With 11 minutes on the clock. The field then coming down through Graham Hill Bend. This is what happened a lap ago. So the first one that lost it was 89 there, Philip Nagel. And as people scattered in avoidance, it was Matt Welch who very definitely came off worse. And off at paddock has gone, perhaps rather more significantly there, into the Tech Pro barriers. One other car, we'll try and identify that in a moment as the leaders come now down towards Hawthorns once more. Turn their way through, and the rain continues to fall, making life treacherous for everybody out there. And you've seen in the last lap 2 incidents that have caught out half a dozen or so cars. So yellows potentially are going to be waved this time at paddock as the leaders now turn their way up through Sheen Curve. Phil Jenkins coping well with these conditions. He may have given away time to Barnes, but he's not given away the lead. That's the crucial part in all of this. He's hanging on in there. Down they come into Clark Curve now. So the Macmillan Motorsport entry leads the way. Jenkins goes to the very outside of the road there, where there's often a bit more grip to be found. It's not the conventional line, but it's the grippier line, and it works for him as he comes up towards the timing line once again here. 10 minutes to go. Fastest lap, incidentally, done by the car in 13th place, number 77, which is Rob Watts, local man from Sevenoaks, 1 minute 44.9, so he's done the best lap, and then that's bettered by Jose João Magalhães, who goes quicker still on his next lap. Through the traffic they turn them, and now the race leaders, Jenkins and Barnes, together with the clock ticking on down into the last 10 minutes, again, you get to this point and things start to become a little bit more pressured. Nose to tail, along Cooper Straight they come. Off the road, Jason McCormack. Now, he was looking good earlier on, and he has come to grief coming along, where's that, Cooper Straight, isn't it? So he's got it wrong out of Graham Hill Bend, spun across the circuit and ended up in the barriers. And again, that's another, if you like, big name in Caterham racing being caught out by the conditions. The fact that these two are pressing on so effectively and racing so closely is impressive, to say the least. And Phil Jenkins has done everything that's been asked of him thus far to hang on to the advantage. Can he hang on in there for just a little bit longer? It's looking good for him as they come through Westfield. Barnes just clips the curb, it scatters the car slightly wide, just bounces it across the racetrack, and he comes up towards Sheen Curve now, having lost a length or so. Brake for Sterlings, go left. So the two champions over the last 2 seasons, once more, going toe-to-toe. And even though they've worked their way up from the 5th row of the grid, it took Jenkins less time to do it than Barnes, but they put themselves right up at the pointy end of the field once more. To the timing line they come then, and the gap between them last time was half a second. It's going to be a bit more than that this time through by the look of it, but as they come over the line and break the beam, Jenkins still just about in charge. Yellow flags wave at paddock because of that car in the gravel, and it's going to affect this battle, isn't it, as Armstrong comes up. Ollivant is behind him, Danny Killeen is next in the queue, then Stephen Collins. In the midst of all of that as well, Lewis Tootle and Jose João Magalhães and Paul Thacker as well, the winner of one of the 2 races at Donington Park. Back marker there, Bales out of the way, which is Pete Reimer. So the occasional historic racer as well as regular Caterham front runner after his earlier spin, struggling in these conditions and gets out of the way of the quicker cars. So the leaders currently work lap number 10, and there Justin Armstrong having cleared Russ Ollivant for 3rd place, 8 seconds back from the top 2. And that's a big, big ask to make up that amount of time. As now, for the first time, Anthony Barnes goes for the race lead, makes his move on the inside line. He's going to go through, is he? Because it's the tighter, shorter, quicker line, and it works for him. Jenkins slots back in behind him and will now plant his attack. Absolutely together, these two. 7 minutes and change on the clock out of Westfield. And straight away, Jenkins gets far more committed about this. The car starts to move across the road a little bit more. To the inside, to the outside, looking for a gap. Up towards Sterlings they come. Through that left-hander, back onto the power. The amount of rain that was on our window compared to what we have now, I would possibly, tentatively suggest it might be slightly less inclement out there, but only a little. But Anthony Barnes has done a good lap here because he's caught, he's passed, and by the end of it, he's pulled about 2 lengths, maybe 3 over Phil Jenkins. Now, Jenkins will want the toe, but even if he can use the toe, it won't carry him past. He'll only get close by the end of that pit straight into Paddock Hill Bend. He runs wide over the curb, survives the moment. Again, Paddock, remember, is a yellow flag zone anyway, so we can't really think about a move there as the cars go through the hairpin and drop down to Graham Hill Bend out of Druids once more. Fastest lap, still that of Rob Watts, who went even quicker still last time, 1 minute 40. And he started where on this grid? Number 77, he was on the 17th row. So another driver working his way through, Rob Watts, number 77. The Sevenoaks driver, as Ross Ollivant there goes way wide. Danny Killeen makes his move for 3rd place against Justin Armstrong, and at the end of Cooper Straight will go through. Armstrong's going to get run out wide if he's not careful. No, he just finds himself back into the traffic there, was able to nip back onto the line and therefore keep at bay Stephen Collins, who in turn has got Russ Ollivant and who else in this? Lewis Tootle in the green car. At the back of it, Jose João Magalhães, the Portuguese one-make expert. And back ahead of Killeen goes Armstrong, round the outside at Hawthorns. You get the feeling out of all of this that something might give at any moment. Killeen pulls to the inside and pulls back in again. Behind him, the silver and yellow car, that of Stephen Collins, number 69, running in this leading group, helped in part by the semi-reverse grid as Danny Killeen absolutely sends it up the inside at Sheen Curve and goes through. Justin Armstrong gave him racing room, and Danny Killeen needs no second invitation. Through he goes. Under the bridge, down through Clearways. The leaders already turning onto the top straight, where they are nose to tail for the race lead. Barnes just ahead of Jenkins, who's fighting back. Armstrong trying to repel all comers in that little fight, as there are the leaders. They go into Paddock Hill Bend absolutely together. That greasy shine to the surface still evident as they climb the hill towards Druids. And hard on the brakes, into the hairpin goes Anthony Barnes, the race leader, making sure there's no gap through which Phil Jenkins can squeeze. Remember, yesterday's red flag race was led at the time of the stoppage by Anthony Barnes, but on the countback to lap 12, not lap 14 when the flag flew, it was Phil Jenkins who was ahead at that point who got the win. So Anthony is absolutely determined that he's going to leave Brands Hatch with one victory. He's yet to win this year, even though he's the reigning champ, and he wants to change that situation today, that is for certain. The leaders are together, a bit of debris lies on the road. Back marker goes through, and here for the lead, Jenkins fights back on the inside line, side by side, dead set level into Hawthorns. Jenkins on the inside does to Barnes what Barnes did to Jenkins a lap ago, and through he turns. But now Barnes goes for the inside up towards Westfield. They can just about afford to play, I guess, because they are so far ahead of the opposition now. Out of Westfield, through Sheen Curve once again, and it remains Phil Jenkins ahead of Anthony Barnes. These two pretty much as one. This huge 8-wheel Caterham in the lead. Twitch from Barnes as he tries to find the grip and loses a length or two maybe coming through the corner there. That's all it takes, little tiny slip like that, and you suddenly lose all the hard work that you've made. Down through Clark Curve. Again, he'll need the toe to help him a little bit here as they come up towards the line this time. So 3 minutes and change on the clock. A flying lap is 1 minute 41. So certainly 2 more laps. And the margin between them, last time they were together 88 thousandths. This time it's half a second, and it's Jenkins still in charge. He's led more laps in this race than anybody else. The big scrum for third comes through, and look at this. 3 wide, further back in the pack, including 77, Rob Watts, who lines up on the inside of the very bright yellow cage, goes through on the inside of Justin Armstrong, who's been pushed back in the pack. And he's not done yet. Rob Watts working his way forward, remember, from row 17 of the grid. Justin Armstrong from row 18. They're the big overtakers in this race. And a big, big lose there. Off the road has gone number 5, the car of Carl Nairn. We've seen his father in strife in this race. Now Carl's in trouble as well, and that I think is on the Grand Prix loop, so hopefully he'll be able to rejoin from that. Billy Nairn's dramas were coming out of Clark, and now Carl Nairn goes off on the back part of the circuit. 2.5 minutes on the clock, so potentially just 1 more lap to go at the end of this. All the while, the team in race control looking at the track state, looking at the number of people slithering off the circuit and trying to make sure that the race is safe to carry on. It is. I mean, it's all down to the driver's right foot and knowing when to apply the throttle, when not to. And you've got to say the top 2 are doing an exemplary job because they're not sliding off the circuit. They're racing hard as well. And that experience, that ability being put to good use. Jenkins versus Barnes. Much as Anthony Barnes wants a win this weekend, Phil Jenkins has looked like the slightly stronger driver in this race, and you could argue is deserving of a win. And actually looking at this, they might get another lap out of it after this, because 1 minute and 40 is a flying lap time, and it's 47 on the clock, 46, 45, 44 as they cross the line. So for the sake of 4 seconds, they might get 2 more laps out of this after all, unless the officials decide to halt it just slightly early. Over the line come the battles lower down, where Killeen, Collins, Oliver, Magalhaes, Tootle, Armstrong, Paul Thacker, Donington Winner and Rob Watts are all busy squabbling. More task wheel as they turn through Paddock Hill Bend. And up now towards Druids. Stephen Collins is third, not for long because he's all sideways, makes contact with Danny Killeen and others. And he's damaged his own car in all of that. And who was the other one that he got caught up with? It was Russ Ollivant in the green and blue livery, who's still going ahead of the pack, but as the car pendulum one side and then the other, the traffic trying to dart past was collected, and Danny Killeen certainly got involved in it. Now, proof of how much drier the road is, Paul Thacker has now brought the fastest lap down to a 1 minute 38. So all the way through as Barnes goes back into the lead, the lap times are improving. Anthony Barnes then is in front, but I still think they're going to have to do another lap here. The irony in all of this is that because the road is getting drier and faster, the lap times are coming down, which means there is greater potential for that extra lap because they're going to get back to the timing line sooner than they would have done when the road was wetter. Down towards Sterling's, nose to tail. So Anthony Barnes potentially to lead onto the last lap, but is that the wrong place to be? Because it gives the toe to Phil Jenkins. Stephen Collins has pitted with damage, side by side for the lead. On the outside is Jenkins, on the inside is Barnes, and Barnes comes out ahead then. Onto the last lap. The clock ticks on down. They will start the last lap now. Through they go. and the margin between them, if it matters at all, is a tenth of a second. Into Paddock Hill Bend, Anthony Barnes, desperate to right the wrong of yesterday and take the race win, but Phil Jenkins is all over him like a rash. He goes up to the inside line at Druids and he still can't find a way through. So Barnes able to fend him off as they turn through the hairpin. Looks a bit like a battle scene on the outside of the road at Druids with bits of car lying by the side of the circuit, but Anthony Barnes it is who comes onto Cooper Straight ahead now. On towards Surtees they go as this little battle rages on lower down, in which you've got Jose João Magalhães and Russ Oliver also nearly tapping the back of the Portuguese driver's car. He goes out wide and Paul Thacker makes his move on the inside. The race leaders then now make the run towards Hawthorn, and on the inside is Barnes, and look at the drive around the outside that Phil Jenkins has got, but Barnes can break a little bit later. Absolutely wheel to wheel. They're side by side, into, through and out of the corner. And now at Westfield on the outside, it's Jenkins who makes the move, and that could be the crucial move of the race. Anthony Barnes is going to have to be very, very clever about how he forces the issue from here on in. Sheen curve, not this time an overtaking opportunity. What about Sterling's? He's close, he's close, he's close. Does he make a dive? No, he can't. He's going to have to line it up now to try and make the move on the line, but Jenkins is quicker through Sterling's. Barnes needs to get in the draft, and the move, if he wants to dart out of the slipstream on the line, has got to start now. He's got to be quicker through Clark Curve. He's got to get into the wheel tracks, but he's not going to do it. Phil Jenkins is clear when it matters. He's going to come up towards the line. Anthony Barnes is closing, but it's too little too late as Phil Jenkins takes 2 out of 2 at Brands Hatch this weekend. Anthony Barnes is defeated once more, frustratingly for him. He takes second. For third, a bit lonely in the end, Danny Killeen comes through, and fourth will go the way potentially of Paul Thacker as they come across the line. Let's just check. It was Thacker for fourth. It was Jose João Magalhães for fifth, ahead of Russ Oliver. Lewis Tootle seventh. Justin Armstrong eighth. Tom Heyman-Joyce was 10th in fact in the end, because he finished behind Adam White, who got ahead of him on that last lap. So Phil Jenkins the winner by 0.127 of a second at the end of a typically frantic race. And it looked as though he was away and clear early on. Fair play to Anthony Barnes, because he worked really, really hard to chip away, to bring down that gap, to get back onto terms. And then Phil Jenkins was able to strike once more, get back into the race lead, and again, lead onto the last lap at your peril, because what you do is give a toe to the opposition, and Jenkins used that very definitely to his advantage. Through he went, picks up the race lead once again, and so Phil Jenkins takes a third win in 4 races in this Toyo Tyres 7-race series in the 420R division. There's one more race from these Caterhams to come by the end of the day at just after 6 o'clock, but that's the 1600 division as the rest of the 420s come pouring over the line. 1 or 2 cars a little bit lighter, a little bit dented. Lots of bodywork, lots of wheel arch, but as ever, the competition really fierce all the way through the field. So Phil Jenkins the winner from Anthony Barnes and Danny Killeen in third place. Fourth, Paul Thacker ahead of Jose João Magalhães, and then Russ Oliver in sixth. Lewis Tootle seventh ahead of Justin Armstrong, Adam White and Tom Heyman-Joyce. So let's confirm the where they crossed the line. And it was a victory for Phil Jenkins. The margin 0.127 of a second at the end of 15 laps, all of which got quicker and quicker as the road dried. Anthony Barnes so near and yet so far. He's second again. Danny Killeen rounds out the podium. Paul Thacker, winner at Donington, finishes fourth ahead of Jose João Magalhães and Russ Oliver sixth. Lewis Tootle seventh from Justin Armstrong. Adam White ninth, and Tom Heyman-Joyce rounds out the top 10 with lap 2 spinner Mark Stansfield in 11th place. Let's have a look at the highlights then, of which there were many from that race, as the cars accelerated away up towards Paddock Hill Bend, and it was a good getaway on the outside of that front row from Mark Stansfield. Everybody else having to tiptoe their way through, and it wasn't long before the dramas came. We had this spin, which scattered cars coming out of Druids early on from Ian Cowley, as Anthony Barnes worked his way up from 9th on the grid on a very slippery surface. Billy Nairn was caught out coming out of Clark Curve. He sorted himself out and rejoined. Others battled their way forwards at the expense of those on the reverse grid that had started near the front. Tom Heyman-Joyce, for example, dropping back into the pack. Russ Oliver likewise given a hard time by Danny Killeen and by Justin Armstrong, who were both getting closer and closer to the front. And then more drama came coming into Graham Hill Bend with that big lose from Philip Nagel, which caused lots and lots of people to scatter in avoidance, including Matt Welch, who had to go onto the grass, and we lost Jason McCormick with a big slide into the barriers at Graham Hill Bend. Pete Reimer, a lap down, got out of the way of the traffic as Anthony Barnes caught and passed Pete Reimer for the lead. I don't mean Pete Reimer, I mean Phil Jenkins for the lead, but Phil Jenkins eventually fought back, and Justin Armstrong was busy fighting with Russ Olivan, but as he did so, he delayed himself and gave Danik Killeen a clear run on the inside up towards Surtees. More drama, more damage, more bits lying in the road. That was at Surtees, as up towards Paddock, 3 abreast up towards the braking zone. Then we lost yet another one coming out of Westfield. This was Carlman, clanging off the Armco, damage to the front, but he was another driver, sad to say, that didn't see the checkered flag. Russ Olivan battling with Jose João Magalhães as those two cars ran together. Stephen Collins ended up with contact with Danik Killeen and ended up as a retirement in the pit lane as he bounced from car to car at a sideways Druids. Over the line, Phil Jenkins the winner, Anthony Barnes in second, 0.127 of a second between them, Danik Killeen third. So Phil Jenkins takes a third victory out of the 4 races that we've had. A very good start to the season. And the 420s and the 1600s will be next on track for the 1600 element of the race. The next championship round takes them to Snetterton on the 11th and 12th of June weekend. But Phil Jenkins has been the man to beat this weekend in the 420Rs from Brands Hatch. For now, it's goodbye.